again and a big welcome to our house. You know, one of the worst things about working on this show, it doesn't matter how much you love your own home, you fall for others all the time as well. This is a good example. It isn't just great inside, but sits in one of the most gorgeous gardens you'll ever see. In fact, we've lost Reg outside somewhere. But before we find him, let's run through the rest of tonight's show. Pete will get stuck into transforming a humble old side passage into a pleasant retreat. We'll check out a home which can not only generate more power than it needs, but incredibly get a credit for it from the electricity department. And Sher will have you organised in no time when he shows you how to knock up a timber filing cabinet. Now, I should explain, this is no ordinary home. It was designed in the 1920s by the legendary landscaper Edna Walling. And of course, the fabulous garden evolved care of her original design. But what's fascinating is she didn't stop at one home or one garden. She went on to design 16 neighbouring cottages with gardens, each branching off a narrow laneway. Ah, there you are.
Sorry about that. I did disappear, but there's such a lot to explore. You wouldn't realise, but most of these cottages are linked by common gates, which gives them a lovely sense of belonging, you know, community.
Yes, we've sort of lost the art of that in a way, haven't we, these days? Now, what are the other cottages like?
Well, far be it from me to trespass, Tracy, but from what I can see, they've been modernised, fairly sympathetically, and it looks like they all share similar roof lines and windows and things. And the gardens are all English cottage designed and maintained according to Edna's strict instructions.
Her mother's house has been added to, modernised, and it's changed hands a few times, but it still retains the original character. An impressive array of collectibles from the 20s and 30s certainly help, and so do all these fabulous antiques.
Anyway, while we continue enjoying ourselves here Edna Walling style, we'll let Pete get down to business.
I'm sure most of you wouldn't really consider the side passage of your house as first choice for an entertaining area, especially if the only access to it is via the backyard. But the owners here have decided to make theirs more user-friendly. The first step to achieve that was to knock a hole in the wall, and that gives us direct access to the area from the bedroom. Of course, we can't really leave it like this, so we'll install some French doors. The Stegbar door frame and doors are pre-cut to size at the factory, so for us, it's just a matter of installing them. It is important, though, to remember when pricing these that they don't come with hinges and knobs. Once you've got the frame in and you're happy with its position, hold the doors up and mark where the hinges go. Chisel out a recess for each hinge so it sits flush with the surface. Then hang the doors, to start with using only one screw per hinge. Right, next thing you do is check to make sure that the doors are nice and flush fitting and that these margins are even. When you've done that, you can put in the rest of the screws. Now that we have good access, we need to create a welcoming area out here. And that's going to consist of a small deck that will run off here at floor level, big enough to handle a table and chairs, and made from treated pine because it's easy to use and it is resistant to termites and rot. With the pier cemented into place, the bearers are drilled and bolted on. Now, before we attach the joists, we've got to make a support for the step. And it's only a single step, so it's not really worth building a special wall for it. What I'm going to do is cantilever it off these existing posts with 3 beams like this. And the step will sit just there. Next, the joists, and then the decking. A solid piece of treated pine, 45mm thick, makes up the tread for our step. You can see that we've added quite a bit of height here, but it does mean that down the back here, this fence is now a bit low. Well, to give us back our privacy, the most cost-effective way would be to add a piece of lattice. Okay, the next job on the list is paving, and as you can see, I've prepared the area with a fine road base that's been screeded and levelled, and we're ready to go. Now, the owners have been down to Amber and they've selected these terracotta pavers. And as I'm sure you've seen on the show before, the best way to lay them is to put the full bricks down first and then fill up the holes later. We're going for a stretcher bond pattern to give the added appearance of length and depth to the area. Now it's time to fill up those holes, and to do that we'll have to cut up the pavers. They are unfortunately a very hard variety, so we do need to use a brick saw. This sets you back about $160 a day to hire, but believe me, it's well worth it. Just make sure that you use the right safety gear and go slowly and carefully. With the paving complete and some plants put into the new beds, the area takes on a whole new atmosphere.
Hey, it's the world's hottest music sensation, Spice Girls, performing exclusively on a monstrous show.
Looks good, feels good, is good.
Plus Ashet and Harry Connick Jr.
I love it.
For McDonald's, 6:30 Saturday on 9.
Costa gives you the look with 2 verticals for the one low price. Choose any fabric, any colour, any pattern, any size, and get 2 verticals for the one low price.
You got the look.
There's $12 million in the Division 1 prize pool of the Saturday Tats Lotto Super Draw on April 12.
This perfume is for me. This is for him. And this perfume is for our home. Ambipur perfume. The subtle perfume for indoors.
New Ambipur perfume, the air freshener with real perfume.
And for a limited time only, the new Ambipur perfume diffuser and refill are available for the price of the refill only. You'll have to try it.
With so much more personality than your average small car, the Subaru Impreza usually ends up as part of the family. And with a drive-away price from $19,990, you can afford to call yours anything you like. Well, almost anything.
Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro qua, Figaro là, Figaro su, Figaro giù, Figaro su, Figaro giù. Pronto prontissimo, so come fulmine, sono il factotum della città, della città, della città.
With Nescafe, we've not only captured the soul of espresso, we've bottled it. Designer style, genuine leather, stunning colours, 12-year warranty. Now you can own this 3-seater and 2 chairs for an amazing $3,495. This week only at Gainesville. Furniture with even more attitude.
If your bills are starting to pile up and taking up precious space in your kitchen, then I think it's high time you thought about making a filing cabinet. Now this is what we're after, but as you can see it's still in its raw stage, but I've got something up my sleeve to change that later on. Because our manila folders and files come in a standard size, I've had to use these measurements to build the unit. All those details you'll find in your fact sheet. The materials have been pre-cut to size, so let's get into making it. To assemble the carcass, attach the 6 cross rails using corner clamps between the side sheets of ply. Now you may find at this stage it's a little bit out of square, but that's no problem. Just adjust it, then when you fit your back and top on, they'll hold it in place. Now with the drawers, we're just going to screw them together. The back has to be this high because we've got those support rails for the files, and with the front, we're going to put a false one on later on. Now we're ready to fit the runners. There are cheap ones on the market, but I've gone for the more expensive ones. The reason for that, they're stronger, so they'll support the drawer. The other thing is they fully extend, so you can get to those files at the back. So you don't see the heads of the screws, we're attaching the false fronts from behind. Now to give it a bit of a neat finish, what we're going to do is put a bit of pine around the bottom. It's sort of like a skirting. We'll just glue and nail that into position, and we'll put something around the top as well. To position the file supports, measure 30mm down from the top and 40mm in from the sides, then chisel out a slot. Screw the other end of the rod into the back of the drawer. Going to put a lock in the top drawer for a bit of security, a couple of handles, then I'll give it a coat of paint, but when it's finished, this wooden cabinet is going to look like steel. All that needs to be done now is to attach the handles and lock, and you'll never lose those bills again. Worse luck. Our filing cabinet came to $124, with the biggest chunk being the plywood and the drawer runners.
If you think all these pieces around me are antiques, you're half right. They're actually new antiques, which are made new using old materials and craftsmanship. And in a world which prizes traditional furniture, they represent a cheaper way of securing yourself quite a treasure. So you're really getting the best of the old and the new?
Yes, you are, because basically you get the construction of a solid and traditional piece, along with all of the new and the mod cons that go into those. For example, you can have retracting doors, sliding shelves, drawers that go on runners, which are easy to slide.
They start with recycled timber, which is imported mostly from Europe. Fruit woods are the flavour of the moment, so there's lots of peach, pear and cherry wood used. Sounds delicious. And to keep costs down, cheaper new timbers are used in hidden areas like the backs of cupboards and the bottoms of drawers, but they always maintain a high degree of strength by using traditional joining methods like dovetailing. You won't find any glue or staples anywhere. Every piece is an individual. French and English antiques provide the inspiration for the initial sketches, which are then adapted according to the needs of the client. A variety of finishes determine the final character. In this case, the look will be French provincial, coated with layers of wash and lacquer. It's worth knowing any colour on the paint charts can be matched. The piece is finished with recycled furniture hardware. As for the prices, well, there's good news and there's bad news. Firstly, the bad news, you will pay in the thousands for most of these pieces, but the good news is they're still a fraction of the cost of real antique equivalents.
Well, it's time to reveal those 10 winners in the $100,000 Our House and Cresta giveaway competition. I won't beat around the bush. The lucky viewers who'll shortly be brightening up their windows with $10,000 each worth of Cresta products are... Congratulations to all the winners, who'll no doubt be enjoying the task of sorting through piles of fabric samples over the next few weeks. Well, after that excitement, we'll take a break, then catch up with Tracy.
Returning 7:30 Thursday, Animal Hospital.
Come on, son, you can do it.
Experience the joys, the tears, the drama.
At the moment, they think we're the enemy.
Join new host Tom Burnison with a new series return of Animal Hospital, 7:30 Thursday on 9.
I found this Thai recipe for lamb. Hope it doesn't make you homesick.
So, which city were you born in, Toc?
Ballarat, actually.
Ballarat? Well, there you go. Ballarat satay lamb.
Lamb, the multicultural meal.
Colonial is about to list its shares on the stock exchange. If you're an eligible Colonial policyholder, you will have received your share entitlement and a prospectus. These shares are yours at no cost, and your policy remains unaffected. Read your prospectus, and please call this number if you have any questions. This is your opportunity to invest in one of Australasia's most diverse financial services networks.
In the spirit of true value comes the limited edition Falcon Classic, with over $3,600 worth of extras free, including air conditioning, a passenger airbag to complement the standard driver's airbag, 15-inch alloy wheels, and classic pinstriping. What's more, it also comes with a new 3-year, 100,000-kilometre bumper-to-bumper warranty. The new limited edition Falcon Classic. That's the spirit.
The new larger capacity Fisher & Paykel Smart Drive has a delay start, a unique water saver option, and spins clothes drier than any other top-loading washing machine.
It's a lovely day.
I'm Jennifer Kite, and I'd like you to come to the Melbourne Theatre Company's fundraiser for the Royal Victorian Institute for the Blind on April the 19th. Imagine you're in a dark house and you feel someone else is there. Turn on the light and everything's normal. But what if you couldn't get rid of the darkness? What if you were blind and you knew there really was someone else in the house? Wait Until Dark is gripping entertainment.
The Sunday lamb roast. It's orange.
It's tandoori.
Tandoori? Since when does this family eat tandoori lamb roast? Only joking.
Lamb, the multicultural meal.
It'd be a fair call to describe these as still life oil prints, but it wouldn't really be accurate. They're actually theorems, the little known art of stenciling paint on velvet. Theorem painting mightn't have much of a profile in Australia, but it has an impressive history, dating back to 7th century China and Japan, where the stencils were applied to pith paper, that's P-I-T-H. It also became popular with Europeans, but because they had trouble accessing pith, they substituted it with velveteen, which had a similar appearance. The tradition was passed on, gradually spreading to other parts of the world. It's been a bit slow to take off in Australia though. Annette Allen is one of just 3 teachers of traditional theorem in this country. Annette, what's the difference between basic stenciling and theorem painting?
Well, basic stenciling is simple and paint is applied with gaps showing, that's the bridges in between the areas that are painted. Theorem is a more sophisticated technique where you're building up with layers of stencils to achieve a picture which looks much more artistic and realistic.
With 2 or 3 stencils cut out, the velvet is stretched onto a cardboard backing. Oil paints are used to form the image. They're ideal because they don't dry out too quickly. Notice how Annette works from the centre out, swapping the stencils as she goes. Each of these has different parts of the image cut out, and this gives definition to the final picture. And according to Annette, seeing it all done is undoubtedly the most gratifying part of the process. Annette's theorems are available for sale and start around the $130 mark. But for one set into a mirror like this, you'll pay upwards of $400.
Have you always thought that kitty litter was only really useful for people who own a cat? I certainly did, but I'm here to tell you, it doesn't just clean up cat doo-doo. It can help to make our trash more pleasant too. When sprinkled in the bottom of your garbage bin, kitty litter soaks up those awful rubbish smells. Just change it every week or whenever the bin gets damp. Perfect.
Solar power is nothing new. It's been around the domestic market for years, especially in the form of hot water systems and pool heaters. But a company called Integral Energy is taking the idea a step further by offering a financial incentive to generate your own power. In fact, you can even make money by generating power. This is how the system works. The solar cells collect the sun's rays and convert it to a power source. It passes through an inverter that changes it from DC to AC, which means from a direct current into 240 volts. This is then sent to two separate energy meters. The first for monitoring energy supplied by the solar grid, the second for monitoring energy consumed by the house. This is the really interesting part, because it's at this point that the power either goes into the house or, if it's not needed, out to the power lines to supplement the energy company's supplies, which is in turn credited to you. So, for example, if a customer uses 600 kilowatt hours of power over 2 months and generates 200 kilowatt hours of their own electricity via the solar panel, they subtract that from the total bill, meaning they only pay for 400 kilowatt hours, a saving of 33%. If you put that into real money terms, a family that spends $200 a quarter on electricity would save about $66 a quarter, or over $260 a year. And if you had, say, a holiday house that only got used occasionally, you could generate more power than you used, and the power company would send you a cheque for the difference. Not bad. The only downside to all this is the cost of the hardware. A 150-watt unit costs around $3,500 and can save about 7% off an annual electricity bill. A 1.3 kilowatt unit costs around $19,000 installed and can halve the cost of your winter bills, and obviously even more in the warmer months. And for a 2.5 kilowatt unit, the cost is around $28,000. But the company says this can make an average family home self-sufficient. Now, why would a power company want to sell me the hardware to generate my own power?
Well, that's an interesting question, but there's three main reasons. Firstly, because of the environmental benefits. Secondly, we're trying to tap into a previously underutilised resource. And thirdly, by allowing customers to install their own power supply systems, we can reduce our infrastructure costs, which in the long term means lower electricity prices for the consumer.
This is not a do-it-yourself system. It needs to be installed by a qualified electrician. And although the setup costs are high, as we've seen, the long-range savings are beneficial not only to the pocket, but also to the environment.
On A Current Affair.
The poker machine addict who begged to be banned.
It was like I was hypnotised.
A $100 a day habit.
The machine was there calling all the time.
Now she's suing the pubs to get her money back.
It is something that will affect the whole gaming industry.
Tomorrow, 6:30.
There's $12 million in the Division 1 prize pool of the Saturday Tats Lotto Super Draw on April 12.
Reflections in the garden, the shimmering colours of Flower of the Year Viola Harbour Lights. Gardening is fun for all the family. Watch your home come to life with living colour. Harbour Lights, another blooming idea at your garden centre now.
3M introduces a range of strong adhesive hooks you can easily remove without damage. The secret's in the stretch. There's absolutely no harm done to any wall surface, and you can easily reposition them in a different place. 3M Command Adhesive Removable Hooks holds on strong, releases on command.
You've never seen anything like it. An international wonderland of flowers and plants, spectacular landscape displays, the Garden Art Gallery, a floral carnival. Get your tickets at any RACV branch or at the gate. The 1997 Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show. On now until Sunday at the Royal Exhibition Building and Carlton Gardens.
The speeding car. The dog you swerve to miss. The drunk driver at 2 a.m. It's reassuring to know Tarago has dual airbag protection.
We'd resigned ourselves to renting forever until we discovered Simmons Home Easy.
It was incredible.
Simmons actually paid our rent so we could save our deposit.
I still can't believe it.
They helped us with our budget, helped us find the land we wanted. They even let us change the design of the house.
Yep, the whole package.
And there were no hidden extras.
So we weren't getting in over our heads. If it wasn't for Simmons, we'd still be stuck paying the rent.
It's a
dream come true.
Stop paying rent and start saving now. Phone the hotline to see how easy owning a Simmons home can be.
Coming up, at last, relief for migraine sufferers. The quest for the perfect body. A medical miracle when a woman hears again. Good Medicine is next on 9. For more information on any of our stories, you can call us on 1900 185 035 and we'll mail it to you. Or, if you prefer to have it faxed, simply dial 1900 185 033. The lines are open 24 hours.
If you've ever been in the market for a kitchen benchtop, then you're probably well aware of the wide choice in materials. But here's one alternative that you may not be familiar with. It's Slate, and as you'd expect, it provides a tough, durable surface. Of course, it's not exactly the same slate you normally see on floors. This stuff, which comes from the Mintaro quarry in South Australia, is exceptionally fine and flat. Holes for appliances and fixtures are usually cut in the quarry, but can be done on site. It depends on your kitchen contractor. Once installed, it's recommended that the slate be finished with an acrylic sealer to help keep the stains out, and it's not a bad idea to go over it once a year to keep it looking good. As for the cost, well, this lot set the owner back about $900 plus installation.
Well, that about wraps up another week, and sadly our time here's almost come to an end too. So, Reg, what are your impressions of Edna Walling's village?
Well, I know she was a visionary. It's incredible to think this leafy little village is bang smack in the middle of suburbia. We could be a million miles from everywhere.
Yes, but of course she wasn't just into flowering plants and shrubs. She mass-planted some incredible trees, and they've done a lot to divide this area off from the rest of the suburb.
And we shouldn't forget she worked with Eric Hammond for almost 40 years. It was his hard toil and slog as a contract landscaper which allowed her ideas to actually be put into practice.
Yes, it was a joint effort. And speaking of which, we better tell everyone what the joint efforts of the Our House team have in store for next week.
In one of our most dramatic makeovers yet, this 50s weatherboard cottage becomes this. We'll take a look at your options when it comes to choosing pavers. And Rebecca has one for the kids when she builds a rabbit hutch. So don't miss Our House next week. We certainly won't.
Of course not. Thanks for joining us tonight.